Hey guys, played some small teams today after yesterday I played a bunch of noob lobbies and it was just, you know, I keep saying this, your OS tends towards the people you play with, so it doesn't necessarily reflect your skill level, but like I've mostly been playing noob lobbies for a long time, and like I kind of hard capped around like 30 OS. So I have to start playing OP lobbies. So, and I have been doing that today, and actually just been a generally better experience for me since I guess I'm able to keep up with them. It's always like, you have to start microing and stuff, but then you can also find ways to just chill. So, what's actually cool, I'm looking at this. These games were relatively short. I think I'm just gonna watch these in order. I might skip the one I lost because the way I look at it is not that I don't, I mean, I lose 50% of my games, but the games that I feel good about, I like to share. Um, I'm thinking about like what this should be about because these are small team games, which it's actually really easy to get top 100 in small team as long as you have a decent build order and understanding of the game. Because most of these, it's kind of like 1v1 where you have to be playing at a very high level against another very high level person for the game to get to T2. So, uh, I guess we'll have a lot of things to talk about, like how do you decide to go vehicles or bots? I've touched on like every subject I'm gonna go over in this video at least once somewhere in my large library of videos, but I'm just talking to get myself to organize my thoughts here. The last game I got matched up with Revan. All four of these games I got matched up with a guy that I didn't want to play with. um so we're going to start with forests and flats. So as we all know, blitz are broken because of a general problem with vehicles that they cost significantly less energy and build power for what you're getting. It's not about unit stats. The unit is fine. It's
Welcome, Commander.
There's just a oversight in the design where in the early days pawns and grunts were super cheap and they just kept upping the price, but they didn't scale anything else around it.
Battle started.
And it's, anybody in the know who thinks about these things would come to the same conclusion that blitz and incisors and vehicles in general have an unfair advantage. Anyway, so this is forests and flats. So if you're not spamming blitz, you're trolling. Why not incisors? Because incisors are slower. So I'll give you the outline of a generally OP build. Actually, this one I played it wrong. You're gonna land and take 4 mechs, 2 solar collectors, a vehicle factory, 2 more solar collectors, And then actually, this is where you take 4 mexes and then two solar collectors, a vehicle factory, then 2 solar. Then you just keep making solar until it's hard to say. It's a little bit different with Rosetta, and we're gonna go over Rosetta too. It's just like a matter you watch your metal bar and you build as many solar as you can before you start stalling. But you also, I think you also want to start up here, actually. But the goal, your first goal is to get your comm off your factory and expanding with enough, and you'll leave a construction bot or a con on the factory. So I played this a little wrong. Well, this is how I normally do it. So some people will rush a con turret, which is just less efficient than building construction bots or vehicles. And then a lot of people will keep their comm at home because it can just, maybe this is the way, is to just spam out blitz with your comm. But I like being able to expand faster. So you'll notice pretty quickly I'm generally always the #1 metal produced because of these optimizations. I will send my comm to the spots that are the most clustered, and then my con to the places where it's less clustered. And this map is like the first thing, obviously, as we're seeing here, is that it's going to be a ton of rover spam. And you just can't, like, you can spam a ton of rovers, but if your teammate's not paying attention and leaking, it's just going to be really frustrating and slow you down from the very beginning. But what I'm getting at here is that you do want to, like, have an LLT in your base as soon as you identify a threat to it. Especially around, if you have a 4 max, you can leave like 1 sentry turret, and that will deter most rover attacks until people start spamming even more rovers. But if you look at this, metal income, I'm at 18. Compare that to my lane. Purple is not expanding with his con. He is stalling on M. He's assisting his factory while he's stalling on M, or very close to it. So the sooner you get a metal extractor, the sooner it starts paying out, the more metal that you get over time. And those tiny differences will compound exponentially over time. So that's why it's so important to have like a really perfected opening. And why it's a huge waste of time to play out hour-long games. Because you just want to work on the fundamentals. At least that's my opinion. But it's nice, these OP lobbies, people actually resign in a reasonable amount of time. And also silly stuff doesn't happen where people survive when they shouldn't. So this is one of those things, like, we're not really paying attention to the back. We're not taking our mechs in the back, stuff like that. So it's going to be a lot of juggling. So you can compare everybody, but it's like you really want to have a ton of cons, and then you'll have cons assisting out cons, and every once in a while, when you identify that your team isn't taking mexes, you have to take the mex. Somebody has to take it. I mean, even if you just share the con to them and queue up the mechs for them and hope that they don't, like, grab it and put it on their factory when there's mechs to be taken, which is a thing that happens. But I wouldn't say it would happen in this lobby, but I'm just saying, like, beware. I'm tired. I'm sick of I think it's just the auto balance lobbies where you're just guaranteed to get screwed over. I don't know. It just feels unfair. Anyway. So I think the balanced lobbies, I was giving it some thought. I think it kind of removes a certain amount of like accountability from people that allows them to cope and rage when it's like completely not earned. So I'm going to be building. The wind's not that good on this map. It's 9. I guess you could go win, but it's just kind of slow. I mean, 9 wind is better. It's just you have to think about solar pays back faster. And it's a huge pain to transition, so that'll be an optimization. Is like, can you get away with wind on this map? I don't know. It's not great, but if you have a bunch of spare cons to build wind, you're just... This is what the early game of Forest and Flats looks like. You're just chasing around each other's rovers. Try not to go chase backwards. Always have your units tending towards the other player, so that you're not backtracking and chasing after stuff. Like have the new things coming from your factory intercept. That's a really good skill to have, so that you can continue applying pressure, and then you don't have like your entire army chasing after stuff that they will never catch anyway. And I'm just speckling LLT every so often, because it's a huge pain to be trying to keep up with all these. I lost a con here, so I built a factory so I could replace it. Not sure if that was the best idea, but when you're floating E, obviously you want to be doing conversion. I wanted to get to a certain point. It's just a lot of like, you know, we're chasing. These LLT are catching a lot of the leaks. If you have, if you see a potential comm that you could take out, especially on a map like this, this is not a big... First of all, you're risking losing your entire army to a D gun, so I actually made that mistake maybe once or twice today. But even if you do destroy the con, or the commander, if you had like 9 blitz, you think like, wait, what if I just use the blitz to take out maxes, which are, you know, a comm gives you 2 metal. Each of these max give you 2 metal. Which is more valuable? I know what I would go for. So it's not like a gigantic lead compared to, say, blue, which is kind of surprising because he's not playing very well. He's losing to incisors, which is weird. He's going wind. So well, one thing about this map, you have plenty of room. I think you should want to space your con turrets. I don't get punished for it very often, so I jumble it up, but I would still want it in a certain pattern at some point when I build my base up, it's gonna be how I like it. So I'm not just placing stuff at random. But like a small team, big map player will build out their base differently and a 1v1 player they have a certain very chaotic base layout, I would say. And me personally, I just like having my base neat and readable and buildable. I don't know. So I was looking at the amount of blitz. Like, he's got 23 blitz. No, he's got 17 blitz to my 13. We're gonna be looking for at some point. I will want to transition to bots so that I can start rezzing and eating stuff. And you always want to be replacing mechs as they get destroyed, helping out where you can. Like, you don't have to fight your lane, especially once you're porked up. You can go somewhere else. Even on forested flats, it takes longer to pork up, but eventually you do pork up. But I think, like, how these matches have been playing out, we just went to medium tank, and it became a 1v1 sort of wreck pile late game fight. And the way you win those is, I think it happens here, but
Commander
this
destroyed.
guy wastes his entire military to take out my comm, and then all of my military goes out to take out his base.
Commander destroyed.
Never mind, I wasted it all in his comm. This was also a bad idea. Like, I could have just ignored those turrets. The Desperation Pounders, which are good. They buy a little bit of time, but
Commander destroyed.
Centurions are nuts. But basically, this guy becomes very impotent when you take out all of his mechs. And this was looking bad. I was like, this guy's gonna get wrecked, but actually managed to degun some pounders.
Commander destroyed.
Desperation play
Battle
over here.
ended.
Even, like, if... what am I trying to say? It's less valuable to pork up on forests and flats, but it's also... You don't want to just completely ignore it, because they will get value. But it's better to have them more clumped up around the mechs.
Welcome, Commander.
Around your mechs, because that's how they'll get value. And try to put them in likely spots. So,
Battle started.
you know, in the front line.
Battle
I
paused.
think I played this one out better. I decided this is okay. So
Battle resumed.
That's what I did. The game's really loud. That has been happening a lot lately. Interface. I'm gonna guess. I don't know which one. I don't know which one is the voice, to be completely honest with you. Now it ain't saying nothing. So you want to take 4 mechs, and then I think you can get 5 solars. If you want to be greedy, you can send 2 cons out. Jeez, I don't know which is best, but eventually, like, at least by your 3rd con, if you're being very greedy, leave the 3rd con on the factory and then send your comm out to start taking mechs. And then start defending everything with rovers until you get some LLT up, and eventually, hopefully, you'll attrition. Once the blitz come out, that's when you switch to blitz. If you get into a comm fight, just make a bunch of LLT, and you'll be building up a ton of just blitz, until you can catch him not watching his units or something. Make plenty of solar, plenty of con turrets. At some point, you will want a second vehicle factory. Not 100% sure when it's appropriate to start making a solar, but if you have some in the bank, and I think even with solar maps, and I'm going to start doing this, is that you want to have energy storage so that you can build those a solar at some point, or have some banked up when you start building construction turrets. And this is before you start relying on conversion. So he's got all these LLT here, so I will not be attacking there. And if I can catch him, like, I think here he had his units set up in a line, and that was the end of the beginning of the end for him, because I started at the side, and then I went that way, and I had more units fighting than his at a particular moment, and that gave me a good trade. Then this builds up. This is the most common thing that will happen when these metal piles start building up. You want to be on top of it immediately, and if you don't have if you don't have like res bots ready for it, which is fine. I mean, you do want to have that at some point, but one thing is that they're very vulnerable. The other thing is you don't necessarily have to transition to bots to get res bots when you can just eat with construction vehicles. But you want to consider that there's a good point that once this happens, both players are going to be going for this wreck pile. Like, put everything into it. So instead of just going units, if you want to have these cons nearby, it's going to happen at the front where these battles happen. So you should already have cons nearby. The cons will be there. You start making LLT, or if LLT aren't appropriate for the units you're fighting, then, which would be like missile trucks, rocketeers, medium tanks, I'm not too sure. But definitely if it's blitz pawn, that kind of thing, that's when you make LLT. But if the LLT can't hit anything, that's when you make a bigger sort of turret. But what I'm trying to get at is once you see this start building up, you don't immediately start eating. You start building turrets here to control the rock pile, because it's more important to control the rock pile than to get the metal, unless getting the metal gets you the rock pile, which, you know, is not very guaranteed. These will happen in the front, so your comm should be nearby, so you'll have the opportunity to build a bot factory. The reason you build a bot factory is that they're just better combat units. They just move slower. Unless, like, there's no reason to have... he's trying to res, which is super slow. Don't do it. Unless you're just in an amazing position. So I'm in a good spot here because my economy is better than his in basically every way. I have more units. He's going to be switching the Centurions, but we're doing good here. I'll have mace to help out, and I'm just going to build up more and more mace. In this particular instance, the sentry didn't really do much of anything, but there was a good chance. Yeah, yep, 6k metal on the ground. Once that's happening, you can transition to beefier units and or T2. So I think I don't know what I did in this particular thing, but I know, like, I'm gonna be eating all this. Once I break through, I'm gonna have fast units to clean up the rest of his mechs. And then we have the obvious time to resign. It would be better to just ignore this. but I'm dumb. Yeah, if you control less than 50% of the map, it's time to resign. Make, like, a few missile trucks because people like Shuris. But also, don't go core on this map.
Commander destroyed.
The map is just too big. Core's at a
Battle
huge disadvantage in large maps. Don't bother trying. And the reason for that is units that get to the front line and fight are much more valuable than units that never get to participate. I don't know if I want to look at this one. I did make a ton of mistakes. I guess we're 26 minutes into the video. I'm not sure if I'm going to have a whole lot to say about this one. I just wasn't paying attention enough, and you know, it was the first time I played
Commander.
Rosetta small teams in a long time. Actually, I really like Rosetta small teams. You want to take 3 max, 2 solar, factory, 2 more solar.
Battle started.
I think you get up to 5 solar. That's when you send the comm out. Don't forget about the 10 max. It's kind of hard to say, like, whose max is whose. The best way to go about it is, obviously, whoever takes the max first, it's theirs. Which is like, you know, people will, if you're in noob lobbies, people will moan and complain, oh, you took my max. I'm like, didn't have your name on it. And it's, I mean, to me, it's obvious. Like, if you don't make a reasonable attempt to take the maxes around you, somebody has to take it. So you want to rely on assisting the factory for as long as you can, and I'm not too sure, like, we're blowing through this one, but I'll make some LLT here and there. LLT are very good. We're prioritizing getting the 3 maxes first, and then the 2, and then the 1s. But you want to be paying attention, like, these little things will put you behind, and obviously I wasn't paying enough attention, or my energy production wasn't that great. These LLT will eventually help, but, like, I keep having to, you know, backtrack and stuff, and the big thing is, well, I just didn't make enough solar early enough. This guy's, like, beamers are good, but I was dumb, and this match was kind of sad. I kept hitting where he was fortified and then regretting it. 2 LLT did not do damage to anything, but remember, you can just make LLT in your base. That will save you quite a bit of trouble. Even when you do make these mistakes and you lose max, you have to replace them as fast as you can. I'll be wanting to go A-solar at some point, and I want to start making energy storage to help with that transition. Like, this was bad. Shouldn't have done it. Didn't have a radar. because I was worried about other things. Looks like I have 8 pawns back here doing nothing. I'm actually surprisingly, this lane is kind of poor, I think. But its calm is back here. So you see how much damage he did to me? You might find yourself very frustrated when you do a lot of damage because you kept your calm at home and made a bunch of units. And were microing furiously, but you're still behind. And the reason that happens is that you didn't expand with your calm. And the other person did, they're just going to be ahead. It works especially good with vehicles. In 1v1, it's like, it's insane. But anyway. Just, I don't see very many, unless the wind is super high, and you can spam pawns. And I don't even know if that's a good situation to do it. I think you just... There's no reason not to expand with your comm. I think. As soon as you possibly can. Like, and by as soon as possible is when you're about bottomed out with your initial starting medal. I usually don't like... I'm trying to be more active with units, so I think I saw this opportunity. Blue's gonna leak into my lane. So instead of... I'm not gonna send my units directly at this. I'm gonna send it here. Because if I go directly at it, I'm not gonna be able to halt its advance, and it's just gonna... Most of the units are gonna miss. There's bombers. Red is very smart for making his own air. I kind of didn't get to build air because I screwed up in the beginning. I do have the eco for it. Actually winning this lane really hard. But I can't stick to... The mace were just a momentary thing to break through the pork, but that wasn't enough, and also I wouldn't recommend trying to do that anyway. If he had con turrets, it would have never broken through. The medium tanks are much better. So I transition to that. They're also good against Sheldons and Hounds. Stouts are really good. Medium tanks are really good. Brutes into
Commander
the
destroyed.
T2 part. So what I noticed was I think what happened was... I'm gonna look at this because I'd assumed that... I guess I didn't transition to T2 fast enough. But when you're losing, you're just gonna lose. I don't know if that makes sense. If you lose T1 phase, you should lose the T2 phase. Against skilled players, they just convert the metal advantage to getting T2 more quickly, and then they get the T2, and then it's just over. Which is kind of like what happened here. So you're not going to get away with that with a lot of stuff that you do in noob lobbies. So this was like, I'm in a, like, actually he just transitioned too soon, so I'm able to clear all this up, but is it worth it? I don't know, because one T2 max is worth 4 maxes. So I don't know if it evens out, but I do get all this reclaim. It looks like I needed more build power to do all this. It's also a big part of this is that you want to be able to eat your spoils and then convert it into more stuff. But this lane already got wrecked. The person I didn't want to play with got wrecked. Unsurprisingly. Oh my god, that was a persecutor, not a gauntlet. Yep, and upgrading this max first, obviously huge. Or maybe not first, but very quickly. The metal difference is gigantic. It's just a matter of like how they're gonna win at this point. They have air, they have T2, they're doing just about everything. But here's the cool one with Revan X Factor. I got to play with him, which was cool, I guess. I don't know if it was something I noticed.
Welcome, Commander.
Oh boy. I didn't get my this is a poor spot. I feel like this one's a poor spot. Unless you can get the 3.2s in the back. Otherwise, you don't get much of anything. Yeah, you have to take...
Battle started.
You have to take the medals. This one I played much better. So, one thing about this map is I think I actually forgot or missed this time. Is that there's a ton of metal reclaim that can keep your comm in your base longer. If you so choose, but also like... there's... most of the time when there's a ton of metal on the map, it's still better to actually just make cons. But if you can get the cons out and then start eating the metal, that's good. So I made a ton of... this time also I took the Geo, so I got about like... I guess I should have like tried to get these other metal extractors up sooner, but doing pretty good on metal. I'm not sure how Fiddler... he's got the 10 mechs. This is really a struggle lane, isn't it? Unless they divvy up these backline maxes to these two players. And that 10 max evens it out. But I'm still gonna do really good against this guy because I get my comm up early so I can contest his max with LLT. I didn't make too many LLT this time either, and I was kind of... I had some close calls, like some almost got through, but just barely caught it. And he's also going core, so it's not surprising that he's not going to be able to apply any pressure against an ARM player. They're good on head... I mean, well, harass ARM player. Yeah, I'm just like... core's good in 1v1s, but the slowness of these units just make them kind of like super useless, especially if you're being passive. But then you also kind of do want to be passive with core. I don't know. You get the Geo up sooner than me? No, we get it around the same time. Let's look at this. I'm now 2k ahead of him, and it's mostly because I'm denying these 2 max. He gets this. Trying to compare things here. I think I'm actually eating my solar, so I get a solar up, but I think he really screwed himself because he didn't get his comm up early, and also was letting other people get these max in the back. Our team is a total of 4k ahead. Not really paying attention to Revan, but as you can see, plenty of LLT. And he's found opportunities to just go around these pounders. I very quickly share T2 to my team, especially if we want this 10 metal max upgraded very quickly. So I'm really not paying attention to this guy. Also, it's the transition to missile trucks and stuff, so just kind of ignored it. I got the fat boys up. Once I got a bunch
Commander
of fat boys.
destroyed.
You think fiends are good against fat boys, but if anything paired with pawns is OP. Or paired with spam.
Battle ended.
So I couldn't even tell you what happened there. Geez, like, what did we even learn today? Well, what were some mistakes I made? If you have the opportunity to land at a spot with a ton of metal extractors, usually the best play is to take all those metal extractors and then make, if it means that you're going to end up stalling, so once you get past the 3rd metal extractor, you will stall on energy. So you would put down a solar and then take another, which is what we saw in the plains and forests, or flats and forests and flats. We open with solar. Most maps, it's appropriate to get your comm moving out as soon as you can. So blow up through all your metal, get a bunch of cons up, and then while you're doing that, at the latest, after 2 cons, you get at the least 2 ticks built. Send your comm out, build LLT around the most valuable metal spots, but you make the metal first and then the LLT. But really, and then when you're thinking about your base, you should be scaling mostly with construction bots in the beginning, especially if it's a map like Rosetta. Anything with a geo, you'll want to get a total of at least 5 cons up in the area here so that you can quickly build the geo. And to build the geo, if you don't want to stall, you be a good boy and make yourself an energy storage, and also make more energy than you need earlier than you think you need. So, earlier than when you need it, because it doesn't start paying until it's built. So Yeah, you want to get the geo up really quickly, and then in the front, you want to get your comm up to the front very quickly. LLT are very good. You don't make anything other than LLT until there's something threatening them. You don't really need construction turrets unless you need them. If that makes any sense. Eventually, like if it's glitters or something, and the front line gets so porked up, the only way to destroy pork is with pork. That's when you play that game, which can happen on Rosetta, for sure. It's not as likely, and it can also happen on forests and flats, which is not as likely, but it'll probably look differently. Use cons to eat metal. I remember learning that in 1v1. It's better to eat metal if it's not out of your way before even taking more metal extractors. Because the more the more stuff you have, just in general, as a rule, the more secure, safe you are. I'm kind of losing my train of thought because this is all abstract. We're not really going by what's on screen right now. The more metal you have, in general, like especially if it's a big map, the more scaling you do, the more units you have. The more units you have, the more places, the less likely the guy can put pressure on you. And then once you get ahead, you also then put pressure on the opponent. When you get into the fights, you eat the metal. If there's a giant wreck pile where all the attention is going to go to, you'll start making LLT and stuff like that to eat that metal. And also, it's okay to eat metal with cons. Usually it'll end up being vehicle cons. I don't know why. That's how it usually happens. I think after that, you just need to use that opportunity to transition to beefier units or T2. Beefier units is usually the better play. You would scale up. Also, be willing to make air if it's looking like somebody on your team is going to be vulnerable to air. There's also opportunities to punish a person who goes T2 before you by making like 10 bombers and just destroying the T2 factory, and then hopefully you can get some more value out of it after that by taking out resource buildings. You'll see that a lot. Sometimes it's an equal trade, sometimes you get even more. Sometimes all of your stuff gets shot down because you didn't send a scout plane first. Fat boys are good. Walking gauntlets or whatever. I really like sharpshooters and fat boys. Don't forget the scale. Bulls are actually really good. And the reason they're good is because they do splash damage, so they generally don't get as easily overwhelmed by T1 as other units. I think splash should be upped for most things around the board because pawn and grunt spam and just spam in general is super oppressive. Not sure if I have more to say. This is really impressive how quickly he got his stuff upgraded. Because he's vehicle cons move faster, and he's got the consoles. Still got a little bit of spam going. Nice, respectable amount of con turrets. This is X Factor, so I just wanted to take a look. That's crazy. Yeah, he's got an insane. Look at the 179 metal in once he gets all that stuff upgraded. So nice. I almost want to go back and rewatch this, but I think we've been at it for about an hour, so I'm done. Goodbye.